It's our mission to align parents and kids and give children the opportunity at a very young age. FCA's always, started really middle school, high school, and college. Well, now we're hoping to, reach children that are 6, 7, 8 years old as well. Okay? If we're ready, can we share that?
Unfortunately, I got about 1,000 things going right now, so. It's a little hard to present live stream.
Mayor, can I ask a couple of questions then? As you've looked around the valley then, as far as for sites and potential, are you looking at potential partnerships as well with, you talked about churches, but as far as like Christian-based institutions like Nampa Christian, Coal Valley, and others, with them investing in brick and mortar and fields and such, is that something that to help you land somewhere initially would be a benefit? NNU, I know I've just finished some master planning for their sports development across campus that, there's already quite an established value that's put in the ground out there. Is that something you can partner with? I know, Ken, we've talked in the past quite a bit as far as the use of Nampa Christian's facilities and such, but so what is that? And then I would ask too, after you make your response, I do have a comment of a potential location, but you're talking 100 acres, is that correct?
We are, but we're also looking at the ability to break that up, so it might be 40 and 50 or 40 and 60.
Well, I was just going to say, I heard yesterday with the enrollment down in the Nampa School District, they will be shuttering West Junior High School, which is a 30-plus acre campus with sports fields already there, adjacent to a city park and facilities. So it might be something if you reached out to the school district.
Thank you for that, Randy. Yeah. Yes, and we have actually engaged in conversations with Nampa Christian and with Coal Valley Christian, and both of those are potential opportunities for this. So this is a vetting process right now, doing our due diligence. But both of them are they're both candidates for what we're looking at here.
Okay.
And we'd certainly welcome any suggestions that y'all may have for us to consider and look at.
Sure. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees? can only imagine when all I would do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine.
So as most of you can see, it's, number one, it's ambitious, and it won't happen without the good Lord supporting. You know, all we're doing is connecting, turning over rocks, and walking in prayer faithfully. And I can tell you, though, as you all know, dreams only happen, they all start somewhere, you know, with a thought and a vision, and then people getting together and working towards it. And we've had a year. We've got some partners in terms of donors. We have national partners that support FCA that are prepared to support this project as well. So we feel confident that this dream can happen and really leave a lasting legacy here in the Treasure Valley, affecting kids, which is the best thing any of us can do, you know, and leave with. So we came today to share our vision. We don't have a specific ask or request today. It was really just about sharing what we're working on and to answer any questions and stimulate you so that you can have some discussion, and maybe together we can figure out how to make this work. And we're just excited, we're motivated, and we're appreciative that we had a chance to come here and talk to you all today.
Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the vision. I think from a city perspective, discussions we've had is we're in need of future soccer fields and looking at where we can partner. It's an amazing vision, and I know the ground is a difficult thing. Unless you find a developer that's already purchased their ground that would be willing to say, hey, I'm not going to put in houses, I'm going to work with you to put in this, and maybe
That'd be nice.
it would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Council, do you have any questions?
Mayor, I do.
Yes.
Mike, what's the anticipated cost that you think that this project will be?
It's going to be a $100 billion project.
100 billion?
Million.
Okay. That's
Sorry.
a big number.
Sorry, it's early. 100 million.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's, you know, we have pro formas that are based on different, you know, numbers of fields and programming, but I think that's a number that you can live with in terms of knowing what we have to raise.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor, my understanding, Mike, you said that what came out of the prospectus is actually larger than what is presented here. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you. This vision here obviously is not an engineering or architectural drawing. It's a vision that we're able to present to people like you and to donors to share what we'd like to accomplish. But when we're partnering with a company called Sports Facilities Companies, and they're out of Florida, and they do sports complexes management and software and scheduling for over 200 facilities, a lot of cities around the United States. So we're partnering with them. They did our pro forma for us, but when they did all of their numbers and they came back to us, they said that the demand here in the Valley and regionally called for more fields than we had presented. So when the number of baseball fields increased, I think the soccer fields increased by 2. So that was very encouraging, because sometimes companies like that will bring back and, you know, they'll cut your vision down a little bit, say it's not going to work. The opposite worked here, so that was very encouraging.
That's great. Yes, Councilman Rodriguez.
Mike, this is awesome. I've never seen this before, but I'll tell you what, I just love it. But, you know, the thing about the city of Nampa is that Parks and Rec has all our programs, and I've been talking to Darren about this, and our Babe Ruth teams are headed to the national tournaments, and so are soccer, and so are even Olympic, I call it bow and arrow, but it's not bow and arrow. Even those kids, archery, are going to the Olympic level, and we can't facilitate them. We need a Babe Ruth stadium. We need soccer fields that are professionally together with our community. So this is a great idea. Thank you for this. I'm so excited, and Mayor, I hope that we can partner with you and help you along with this travel, because we need it. And Thank you for this. This is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Victor. And one thing I would like to say, which is just my opinion, but I first moved here in 1990, so I've been in and out of the Valley for a long time. And, you know, perceptions are interesting of different cities. And Nampa's headed in a direction that nobody saw in 1990. And Nampa's going to be, you know, a leader in this valley, in this state. And I personally feel like this is the kind of project that puts a signature on Nampa and allows it to market yourself in a way that you're already marketing yourself, but gives you know, an amazing concept for the future. So it would be a great fit. We'd be privileged to be able to work with Nampa. I can tell you that.
And Mayor, one other comment. These are all turf fields, and I know Gene Blameyer is on your board, so you're thinking about changing it to blue?
Well, and we've had discussion about that, so I'm sure as the discussions go on, number one, whatever city we land in and have a partnership with in some way, we're going to talk about what's good for them, you know.
What color's in you?
Thank you.
Red and black.
Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you
Really
very much.
appreciate you
Thank-
being, thank you
thank you,
both.
Mayor.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it. Thank you,
taking
City
the
Council.
time to come. We appreciate it. Okay, are we queued for our, these kind of go together because the next one is the update of our Parks and Rec concept plans and working with our master plan and Art Thatcher with Barry Dunn, sharing really where we are. We didn't get done last time, and so we're going to continue today. And so, Art, are you with us?
I am. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Great. It's a little stressful when it doesn't work, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, technology is a great thing until it's not. and so that's a really hard act to follow. That's quite an impressive endeavor, and it would be an amazing thing in the Valley as well as in Nampa if and when that comes to fruition. For sure, there are a lot of regions around the country that would be very, very envious. So can you see my screen?
We sure can.
Good. Okay. So good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to come back and give you a view of the concepts that we have come up with as part of the master planning process. We were asked to do some concepts for the 2 golf courses for potential additional uses of the unused property there. And as I've said with every one of the public meetings and all of our gatherings with folks from the golf courses, we have done absolutely nothing to each one of the holes and the playable area of the golf courses. We have only looked at extra space around those holes. That was our charge, was not to touch or disturb any of the play on those golf courses. So as we go through this, that's just something to keep in mind. So we were asked to do some concepts for the 2 golf courses as well as for Lakeview Park. And so I'm gonna provide you with kind of where we are after all of our engagement. And so just to kind of a little quick, to give you some background to kind of catch you up a little bit, we're in the draft phase of the master planning process. So we've done our recommendations and actions, and I've provided those to you and presented those to you last time. And now we're kind of finishing that up, and I anticipate having the draft plan to Darren and to staff after the Thanksgiving holiday. We'll have that first draft of the full plan. So just a quick on the community profile. You know, you're growing. You know, by leaps and bounds. You know, looking at another 9,000 people. Over the next 4 years up through 2027. And as you look at the age distribution, you can see that your older population is growing a little bit faster than your younger population. So we keep those in mind as we look. So some of the trends that we presented: walking for exercise, jogging and running, a couple of the top fitness activities that the adults are participating in Nampa. Also, sports-wise, you can see golf is the top sport that your adults are participating in, and then followed by basketball and then soccer. One thing that this doesn't show is it doesn't show pickleball. Pickleball they were not looking at the numbers for pickleball. In the 2024 report, you'll see pickleball will be in this Esri report. They've finally kind of gotten on the ball with that. So as far as engagement, we did stakeholder interviews, we did leadership interviews, focus groups, we did a staff focus group, and so, and engaged a good portion of the community face to face. And we've done several workshops since then. And through that, some of the desired amenities, looking at additional trails and pathways, trail connectivity, shade structures in parks, an adventure destination playground, disc golf, and pickleball courts. Some of the priorities: trail and pathway connectivity, maintenance and updating your existing facilities, looking at shade at parks, pathways, and fields. We also did the survey, as you remember, and some of those facilities that came out of that were additional facilities and amenities was the top thing that people were looking for, as well as better condition and maintenance of your parks and facilities, and as part of that, future needs: improved pathways and trail connectivity, more parks, additional shade and picnic, renovating your existing parks and facilities as those top needs. When we looked at the inventory and your level of service, you can see we inventoried. You can see the golf courses up at the north, kind of then south of that, Lakeview, and as the two your bigger land masses. And so as we looked at kind of distribution, we talked about a 10-minute walk, and you can see those orange areas were the greatest access to recreation. And you can see in between the golf courses in Lakeview, there's a gray area, and so there's less walkable access there. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So again, those recurring themes: pathways and trails, continuing to connect the community, maintenance and updates of your existing parks and facilities, preserving open space, were some of those top recurring themes. And so for the conceptual plans, we added that. They were in the survey. We had 944 responses that gave us information about the golf courses and Lakeview Park. In January, we held a workshop, one at each one of the golf courses, so that we could engage the users. We also held a workshop with the Golf Advisory Board, and then we also did a separate workshop for Lakeview Park. Then we revised we did our concept plans. We came back and did a second workshop, again, at each one of the golf courses and for Lakeview, so that we could get feedback from individuals. We did revisions to those, and then we put the Lakeview concepts out on your website. Again, received 225 comments on the Lakeview, worked with staff and leadership to come up with final concepts for the two golf courses as well as for Lakeview. And so this is Centennial Golf Course, and you can see we have Centennial. We've identified 11th Avenue that runs by the golf course, and then also the water canal that runs through the golf course. So all of the holes are maintained, and what we looked at was adding a native garden. And there's an unused portion between holes 18, 11, and 10, looking at making that more of a native garden. And right now it's just really kind of weeds and rough. Looking at, you can see the yellow dot there just underneath of that, a youth training facility that would be indoor as well as outdoor, so we could do year-round training. And when we say youth, it would be geared towards youth, but also during the winter, it would be available to adults as like an indoor kind of driving range and practice area, so that we could get use there. Also, kind of you can see down, improving the parking around the clubhouse and improving the existing clubhouse and food service. So not a lot of change there. We also looked at some at some designated pathways. One of the things that we heard was that there is a lot of walkers come through the golf course, and there's some potential for conflict between the golfers and the walkers. Mostly the golfers indicated that their strokes were not great enough to miss some of the walkers, and they were afraid that they'd be hitting some of the walkers if they were there. So we looked at a way to kind of increase the walkability and still make it safe. You can see at the top on the north side of the railroad, there is an existing pathway that comes down, and so we are kind of connecting the golf course to that pathway as it runs east, along the railroad path, and then connects up, going again north towards the up north, out of the golf course area. So again, increasing that walkability, that pathways, those things that were noted. So then we move over to Ridgecrest, and again, preserving all of the holes at Ridgecrest, and really adding some additional opportunities in there in a lot of that used area. So as we look to the east and the north, you can see the kind of the shaded area along there that is that hill and that rough area through there. So looking at doing an archery range in there, as well as adding in some single track mountain biking in that area to kind of increase the use and provide some opportunities for additional use in that area. We've added some parking to the north of that area so that we're not disturbing the parking for the golf course, and there is an opportunity for an entrance to the east that doesn't exist right now. There's you see Ridgecrest that runs through there drive, and then north of that, kind of looking at a shade structure and a beverage area in between holes 12 and 13. So that while they're out on the course, people could get refreshments and also have an opportunity to get out of the sun if they needed to. Right, you can see around 11 and 10, we've added a 9-hole chip and putt course, again with some parking for that area. One of the things that we heard were some opportunities for additional revenue, as well as opportunities to practice to help to supplement the driving range out there. As we go to the west, you'll see there's the existing model airplane aviation fields. We had been kind of told that they were using that whole kind of area up there to the north of where we have them now, and they said that they were not. That was an area that we could look to add some additional opportunities in. So they were very involved and very appreciative of us keeping that in mind. One of the things that we, as we kind of move south around the existing, clubhouse and parking, looking at that existing area, kind of improving the existing clubhouse and food service as it exists. Again, the opportunity for a youth training facility there. We show one at each of the golf courses, but we would only really recommend having one in the complex. So this is like an either or as you kind of look at how you do that. Again, complementing the driving range in that area. We looked at kind of as you go south of Ridgecrest Drive, where the historic barn is now, is renovating that into an event space and being able to use that for other activities, increasing some parking down there, and cleaning up that area so that you have the indoor event space as well as some outdoor event space. Again, as you go further south, underneath that, you can see down at the bottom by hole 5, adding another shade structure and beverage station in that area. And then as we go back up north of Ridgecrest Drive, kind of moving to the west, so some additional parking and adding some pickleball courts in that area, to help supplement. One of the things that we see around the country and that's been occurring is that a lot of communities now are building these pickleball complexes, and they're doing a pay to play, and pickleball players are extremely willing to pay to play if they can reserve time and those things. And so, not to take away from any of the operation of the golf course, we would be able to do a pay to play to help man and maintain that facility, so that there was no negative impact on the golf course as it exists today and its budget. And then finally, as we update the barn and everything, you can see up by hole 17 that we have relocated the maintenance yard and the maintenance building up into that area. It was an unused area. We talked to staff. Was a good opportunity for them to be really in between the two golf courses and to help facilitate some efficiencies with maintenance in those areas. Again, you can see up to the north, adding some pathway, along the canal, and then also some pathway north of the railroad. And so here are the two golf courses together. You can just kind of see them as a single entity with our concepts of some additional uses kind of added in. You can see how it ties the pathways together north of the railroad and also some south of the railroad, and then along the canal, and really makes it, connects the north with the southern end of the community through the golf course, and makes it more safer and more compatible to the current uses. The other thing that I didn't point out is you can see over to the east on Ridgecrest, you can see that we've established a sledding hill kind of over in this area south of Ridgecrest Drive. We know that currently there is some volunteer sledding when it snows in that area, and so trying to designate an area so that users weren't doing damage to the greens or to the fairways. And so those are the two golf courses as we looked at those. Then we moved over to Lakeview Park, and one of the things that we wanted to do was kind of look at increasing open space, make it more efficient and usable, be able to include some of those activities and amenities that we heard through the master planning process. And so you can see we've taken out the interior roads within the park and moved the parking to the east on the other side of 16th Avenue to accommodate that, and and to the north of that parking and the fitness area that currently exists is putting a display garden up at that top area where the bike area is right now. So kind of making that more we heard about display gardens and making that a focal point at that corner by the railroad and 16th Avenue and Garrity. As you kind of flow into the park, you can see we've created a large open space along there, added some interior pathways that go along. We've created a berm along Garrity so that we can, one, kind of deflect some of the sound, from events at the band shell and those things, but also to provide some undulation within the topography and to really create a vision there. Adding in a picnic shelter, kind of up in in that central area. The other thing that we've done is taken the existing like train and tractor trailer and those pieces and brought them together so that they're the planes, so that they're more of a focal point for opportunities for them to be seen and can be and can be better displayed in that area. We have, we've reestablished the lake in that area, and can, so that there's, opportunity for fishing and those things within the lake. We're looking at, 2 pedestrian crossings over 16th, and one actually possibly being under 16, so that it's more, it's safer. As we kind of go along this very active side to the south of the park, you can see that we've added this amphitheater, and then we've got this, central kind of hub of playground within the area, kind of coming out to relocating the rose gardens to either side of that area with an event center in there. And then you have the existing pool. And one of the things that we discovered when we were out there is that you've got a warm springs that is active in that park. And we understand that there used to be a pool that spring fed and heated. And so looking at the opportunity to reestablish that pool, because there was there was interest in another pool, and the existing pool is a good recreational area, and so kind of building off of the existing pool and that opportunity for a new pool there, taking advantage of the Creaches courts that are across 7th and adding additional sports courts in that area. We didn't define what those sports courts were. We had interest in additional outdoor basketball. We also had interest in pickleball and those things. And so as we kind of go through the planning process, seeing what is of the greatest need when we come to this development area. And then, up in the kind of the the northwest corner up at 11th Avenue, looking at a memorial plaza up there to honor the veterans in the area and to be able to bring some of those pieces together in that as another focal point at that corner of the entrance to the park. And then finally, you can see that there's that pathway that goes through the park and the park area also exits kind of out this pedestrian boulevard and really goes down 14th to connect to downtown. And so that we, by providing that connection and really emphasizing that connection, it brings, that 10-minute walk for those residents, and also connects downtown to Lakeview, and then also as we look at, so here's kind of, as we look at pathways, these are some of the existing pathways, and here's the golf course, and then, here's the existing park, and then you can see here's the existing park, and then that connection, down to the downtown area. So we've been able to, you can see this kind of orange, create this pathway down that really connects the, from the golf courses, down to Lakeview, and then down into downtown. So really adding some connectivity along those areas, and also kind of along Garrity, into a loop through. So really, kind of, you can see these circles of, where these hubs can occur and can connect the community. That opens up and provides access to those citizens and other community members in that gray area that didn't have that connectivity that we saw.
Mayor Kling.
And so, yeah, that very quickly, that's the that's where we are with kind of these concepts, and also with the connectivity plan, looking at pathways and those things. So I thank you for I know I've given you a lot, and so thank you for the opportunity.
Art, thank you. That is an excellent presentation. So thank you so much. So, Council, are there questions? And Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you. Hey, thanks, Art. You've done a heck of a job here. I'm smiling over here, wondering what's next. This is great. My questions is not necessarily for you, Art, but it's for Darren or maybe Colby. So, I know there is in regarding to Lakeview Park, I know there's a baseball field there. And it's one of the best in Nampa, actually. So how much is that used? And my question is, if we're going to lean toward building new diamonds, like we're doing for Babe Ruth, could that area be used, can be relocated, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Councilman, there is a baseball field at Lakeview Park right now called Les Goodman.
Right.
As you see our planning with Midway Park, and you see our planning with Brant Park, we're adding some baseball fields.
Right.
And knowing that this one baseball could eventually go away, will actually be positive in the baseball facilities when the completion of Brant and Midway Park is developed. So
are you saying it's going to stay there then, or are you going to remove it?
the long-term plan is not to have a baseball field
Okay.
here. It's more of an event space, and just thought it was better utilized, Lakeview, since it's kind of a downtown park, better used as event space than a sports place right now.
Okay, that's what I was referring to, because I go by there quite, and I don't see it used as much as I would like to see it used, so.
Yeah.
There's
It
not a
gets
league there, is
used.
there?
Yeah, it gets used.
Oh, it does?
And Beach allocates that field out.
Oh,
so,
do you?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's the U13 girls fast pitch, right? No?
Beach, thank you for coming forward.
Mayor, Council, Beach Johnson, Rec Manager. So it's duly allocated to both Babe Ruth and Nampa Valley Little League. So we have two baseball leagues, youth baseball leagues in town.
Oh.
And last year they shared it. So it was split 6 days. So 3 went to Babe Ruth and 3 went to Little League. And so it was really a practice facility. Nampa Valley Little League may have played a few games there, but it's really a practice facility. Softball doesn't use it. Mostly the softball teams have been allocated to either on the Babe Ruth side to Midway Park, and then the club softball side is either out west or Lions Park, Skyview, et cetera.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thank you, Beach. Thank you.
Mayor, I do.
Yes.
Cody, since Darren was already up, why don't you, I think you can answer. And I may have missed it. So it's going to be more of an event type park. Is there going to be like family, where they have family picnics and gatherings, or is that not to happen here? And if there is, I have a follow-up.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Bruner. Yes, this park is envisioned, and Art can maybe speak more closely to that. This is meant to be Nampa's Central Park kind of a concept. This is the place where we want to have the Chamber of Commerce come do their Taste of Idaho events, where we're going to have our arts festival events, where everybody's drawn in. And it's also, with the Rose Gardens, a wedding site. We want it to be the places where family reunions happen. We envision some of this plaza area that Art spoke to as potential ice skating ribbon and maybe a rental shack where you could rent the skates or rent a paddle boat and go out on the water. Maybe there's a snow cone shack or a taco truck or something that's there on a scheduled, regular basis. There's playgrounds, maybe fitness facilities that are part of those play facilities there for families to use. I think what Darren was referring to is the plan is for sports events like the baseball and soccer clubs to be reallocated to other fields throughout the city of Nampa that are more designed for that purpose. And this is more of the community gathering space.
And so my follow-up question is, and you know, just hearing this for the first time, I heard over 16th. Of course, my first thought was, well, we're going to stop traffic. We're talking about going maybe possibly underground, overground. Later, we can talk about cost. I don't know what that costs, but it sounds like a lot of dollars to me. The other thing is, when you have an elderly person, in mine, I have a 94-year-old mom that's too proud to use a wheelchair. But, you know, she will with a walker if you, but to have access distance-wise from where I'm seeing only one parking area. From a citizen-friendly for our seniors, which I realize he's talking about more activities like pickleball and so on, but when they get older where they're not really recreational activities, just hoping to get to a place where they can reunion with family and network with family and not have to walk a quarter of a mile.
That's it.
So I just wondering what type of accommodations that may be for that type of demographic.
Yeah, I can address that if you'd like me to.
Oh, and okay, Art, that's fine.
Yeah. So as you look at the drawing, you know, we do, keeping that in mind so that it is fully accessible to everyone. You can see that we do have an additional parking space, parking area by the existing pool and the event space in the Rose Gardens. And then also 7th Street is a wider street than a normal residential road, and so we've provided parking along 7th Street on the Lakeview Park side of that road, so that in that active area where the gardens are and the event space and all of that, there is additional parking there. And during special events, that parking area by the pool can be designated as handicap parking so that it doesn't fill up, and so that we do provide that opportunity.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Arthur.
Where's the pitch? Horseshoes, real quick. Where's the horseshoes going?
The horseshoe pitching area has been eliminated and potentially moved to another facility.
Okay, thanks.
And did you have additional
Mayor
comments?
and
Yes.
Councilman Bruno, I just also wanted to add, I think the vision of this large parking lot that you see is intended for the large events, the arts in the park, where we have a really large gathering. I think daily use of the park, the parking needs would be met on 7th Street and these other ancillary parking lots that Art referred to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the other thing that I didn't point out is that that central kind of area in between the Rose Gardens, we also envision as being the permanent home for your Christmas tree.
For what?
Our Christmas tree.
Oh, Christmas tree. Oh, that would be great.
That was one of the things that we were tasked with, was finding a location within the park for the Christmas tree.
Mayor.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
Darren, can you come up? Just a couple of quick questions. I'm not going to get in the weeds on everything, but a couple of things that kind of triggered me was state regulates anything we do now. So that I assume all of this has been vetted with the state as far as the uses that you've described at the two golf courses.
Yeah, so at the golf courses, some of the activities that we've proposed on this master plan are in our agreement. We wouldn't need additional permission. There are a few things on the plan that we would need to go back to the state and ask for permission, such as the archery, the mountain biking, the event center.
Right.
And so the agreement was written up that they approved things that they felt comfortable with, that they could see the vision and the traffic and, you know, the total impact. But the golf agreement also allowed us to have plans, give plans to the state on a case-by-case basis and have another amenity or activity approved. And so we would have to go through a process of, you know, what kind of traffic it would bring in, how many people that would be using, and that kind of thing. So.
Okay.
And really, the focus with the state as we work through this agreement is that it become, and what we've communicated the entire time, Parks and Rec, right?
Yes.
Recreational uses, not for-profit, any private sector things. So everything suggested here is really in keeping with the essence and the spirit of the agreement that we discussed.
I did hear a comment about the ability to charge people, and this would be more of a profit-type center.
But it's
and
still-
Not just community use.
But it's the city and it is part of Parks and Recs, because part of the Parks and Recs program, we charge today.
Yeah.
We charge to go to our rec center, we charge for programming, and so this would be no different than what the intent and the spirit of that agreement is related to someone in the private sector operating a business out of here, and that would not be, it would be us, part of our Parks
And that's
Department.
fine, that's why I asked the question,
Yeah.
if it's been vetted properly. And some of these activity areas that have been defined at the two golf courses, the parking that's associated with it, is that meant to be auto parking or cart parking? I mean, as far as accessing some of those areas, it'd be problematic to put a roadway system in there. So are you anticipating those would be golf carts to move people around?
No, the additional parking is for cars,
Okay.
and then the pathway is for pedestrian traffic.
So I would assume you'd put the drive lanes on the perimeter then, instead of crisscrossing across the courses to get there's some internal areas that were defined in the golf course layout. And to Darrell's point, for someone that's ambulatory challenged, for them to be able to hit some of those internal areas, they're not going to be driving their car there. So would that be a golf cart that would get them there, or are they denied
Well,
access?
If I could comment, so for example, there's a driveway that goes up to the existing model airplane field, that right there, thank you, Art. That is a road to drive on, and I think that would continue on to that parking lot there.
Yeah.
I don't know that there are any other automobile driving paths.
Well, where the cursor is, there's a little green area, a lighter green area. Is that, no, right next to it.
Right there,
That's
the
not-
youth, that,
This is that 9-hole chip and putt course.
Okay, so that's a part of the golf course, so they would use carts to get there.
well, you could drive to the
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a parking lot.
Okay, all right.
Yes, yes.
I'm wondering, some like the archery area down there, to be able to get to that area, you'd have to come from the north, since it's at the lower part.
So we would have to obtain an easement through a property
Okay.
to get to that.
All
to
right,
get that
so you are
part.
talking about automobile traffic. Okay, my last question then, and I'll just ask it. There was a point made about the Lakeview Park having geothermal access. Do you know the temperature of the water?
I don't. When they had the Lakeview pool, the old Lakeview pool there, they fed that with the geothermal water. When
Just
they built the
a
new,
direct loop into the
I think
water?
it was a direct loop, or
Not
they
an
used that
indirect.
as a water source. It was, I wasn't in this position when they built the new pool or designed that, and I'm not sure what the reason is that they didn't use that geothermal and they went and used just regular potable water for it.
Yeah, Mason Creek runs through there. Is it a part of the Mason Creek aquifer? Do you know where the water's coming from? Is it below that?
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from.
I've been involved with aquatic design before where we've used geothermal, and it is a resource that's very nice to have because it's free.
Yeah.
If you can just do a closed loop, you're not actually using the water and having to worry about sanitizing it, but using a closed loop, you can put it back in the ground. So that would be a great location if geothermal was available for an upgraded pool in the north side of town, which
Yeah.
I think is needed. So
Yeah.
you might check on the water, the temperature. If it's high enough, you could really look at that as a way to save money and maybe even get grants.
Yeah, definit's a good
And are you-
suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, that was, so we discovered that walking in the park, and it's actually it's piped right now, and the pipe empties out into Mason Creek, where the old, where I guess the old pool used to be.
The warm
And it's-
water,
and-
I'm
Yes.
sorry. Actually,
Yes,
so
it is.
So that's a temperature increase to Mason Creek?
Yes,
Okay. Is that waters of the U.S., do you know?
I'm not sure.
I can answer that question.
Thank you, Tom.
Counselor.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is the waters of the U.S., and there's quite a few artesian springs around Indian Creek and Mason Creek in this particular area, and some of them are warmer. I don't think that they're that warm, because
Okay.
it's not, the very deep water is warmer, and then it gets a little cooler as you go farther up. But it's just a natural occurrence, and so it's not regulated anyway, since it's an artesian spring.
You know how deep that is in the ground?
I don't know. This is generated from all the shallow groundwater, but it's being heated up somehow before.
Are there settling ponds there for the water to cool down?
No, it just goes right into the creek.
Well, needless to say, this is something that I think will be really good to research as we move forward. And thank you for those comments and questions, Councilman Haverfield. Good insights. So I think that's a discussion that we can have.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. For sake of time, we will move on unless are there any additional questions?
Yeah, thank you, Art.
Art, thank you for your presentation. We really appreciate the great work that you've done on our Parks Master Plan, and we'll look forward to being in touch the next time you're in town.
Sounds great. Thank you all very much. Have a great day. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the illegal substance advertising. And this particular topic was brought forward by Councilwoman Jangula, and I appreciate her questions. And I think I would like to just, do you mind if I hand it to you to talk about the concerns that you've had? And I will say, this has been a discussion here, but it's been some time ago, and I really appreciate you bringing it up. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I had a concerned citizen reach out. I don't know if other council members had that as well. And we just got to talking, and he also mentioned the Google ads and things that come about illegal substances. And I told him that there wasn't really anything we could do about those because those are more targeted, and that's not really anything that we can control. But where we are having controlled substance marketing in our city, I'm not sure. I know I sat on this for a while or a few days, I guess, because of freedom of speech, and I didn't want to violate that. But then as I was looking through different codes, I feel like there's a way that we can not allow this kind of advertisement to be in our city, knowing that it's something that isn't legal here. I don't know why we would want to market something that violates our Idaho codes. And as I was looking at, we have our freedom of speech code, but in Title 37, Chapter 27, Article 4, it talks about, and I just want to read this really quick, and this is kind of where I was going with it, is it is unlawful for any person to cause or to be placed in any newspaper, magazine, handbill, or other publications, or to post or distribute in any public place any advertisement or solicitation offering the sales for stimulated controlled substances. So I don't know, I think we can have a conversation about this, kind of what council thinks is appropriate and not appropriate here. And as I thought about it, other illegal things that our city doesn't stand for, let's say human trafficking, if there was a billboard that said, go buy kids over here, we as a citizen, as a community, I don't think would want that in our city. And so since this is something that's also illegal, I feel like we can kind of put it in that category.
Thank you for those comments. I would like to, before we move into discussion, our legal counsel, Todd Lakey, is online. And Todd, I would like for you to speak to this particular topic so that we understand where we can go if we can actually put together an ordinance as the city to say this is not allowed in the city of Nampa. Are we allowed to do that, or could you speak to the legal side of this discussion?
Sure, Mayor. Thanks. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, as we dug into this a little bit previously, I dug into it some more. And just to kind of lay out the legal framework for you, commercial speech is still a protected speech under the First Amendment, but it's less protected than non-commercial speech. It's given what's called intermediate scrutiny and not strict scrutiny, and the standard isn't least restrictive, but it's narrowly tailored. Is your regulation narrowly tailored? And there's kind of two hurdles that somebody would have to overcome in challenging an ordinance that we would put in place prohibiting billboards advertising, illegal controlled substances like marijuana. Typically, commercial speech, protected commercial speech, does not include advertising for illegal activity. The little bit of nuance to that is, in this case, it's legal in Oregon, but it's not legal in Idaho. And I think that the Idaho interest in its location and controlling that commercial speech and regulating that commercial speech in Idaho should be a greater interest than Oregon. We're not saying, Oregon, you can legalize what you want, but it's not legal here in Idaho. That, like I said, is a little bit nuanced. I think we have the stronger argument there. If we're moving forward, it might look a little deeper into that issue. But that's the first hurdle. I think the second hurdle we should still be able to support, even if for some reason a court was to say, well, it's legal in one place, but so they could still do it. For us to regulate that commercial speech, we have to have a substantial governmental interest. And I think controlling illegal substances and the use of those substances by Idahoans is clearly a substantial government interest. It's illegal by state statute. And then the regulation has to directly advance that interest. And I think there's a reasonable connection to the fact that it's illegal and prohibited in Idaho and the advertising for it. And then the regulation has to, this is that test I refer to, has to reach no further than is necessary to accomplish that purpose. And our regulation has to be narrowly crafted and objective and has to be a definitive standard. It can't be some kind of unbridled discretion where you simply just decide which signs you like and which you don't. So I think if you're interested, we should look at crafting that ordinance and make sure it's narrowly tailored to talk about billboards or signage that advertises the sale of, this is just an example, of controlled substances that are illegal to purchase or sell in Idaho. Or businesses whose, substantial or primary purpose is to engage in the purchase and sale of controlled substances that are illegal in Idaho. You'll notice some of the advertising doesn't blatantly come out and say what they're selling. They just advertise that business. So I think they're maybe, they're trying to not be too blatant, but I think, we could probably narrowly craft something to reach to that. So that's kind of, the little more in-depth look, but we still want to be careful on how we craft it and look a little more in that cross-state lines issue.
Mayor, question maybe for Todd, and thank you for bringing this up, Councilwoman Jangala. So if you do an ordinance, you clarify for me, are you talking about just doing an ordinance regarding this one advertisement to marijuana, or would it be broader for anything that's illegal in Idaho where another state or business is advertising to come over across the border to them? And let me speak to what I'm talking about is like abortion. I realize I'm not seeing signs on abortion, but Idaho Press Tribune, at least on a weekly basis, has a full-page ad. I don't know if it's Planned Parenthood or who, but is also advertising to cross the border for your abortions.
Right. Mayor and Councilmember Brunner, I mean, you bring up a good parallel issue. I think I was initially just looking at the narrow issue of controlled substances.
Yeah.
If you throw in any illegal activity, you're probably still under the same umbrella. Just kind of, we might just raise the scope of those that might challenge it. But I think the analysis is probably the same. I was just looking at it in the context of billboards.
I'm just thinking if we go to that effort, I would just have it more generalized. If there's something potentially illegal in this state and legal in another state, that they're not allowed to. Now I don't know. Think you probably can't stop maybe the newspaper so much. But at least on billboards or something of that effect. So, otherwise, I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 other areas too that people are advertising I'm not aware of. But thank you, Councilwoman.
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd.
Mayor and Councilmember Brunner, I think we would still want to be somewhat careful because we want to focus on what it is we want to focus on, and you can, decide what that is. But I don't know that we could be so broad to say you can't advertise anything that may be illegal in Oregon. It may not carry the same weight. Maybe it's not legal to sell a used, I'm just making this up, a used tractor unless it's done through a dealer, or, just something more innocuous that may be different in Oregon and different in Idaho. We should probably focus it on, try to narrowly tailor it to those things that we want to really cover versus just some broad illegal spectrum. Those are just my thoughts.
Todd, thank you. Really appreciate that. Okay, Council, do you have further questions?
Mayor, can I do?
Yes.
So Todd, let me get this straight. So if we draft an ordinance, and I agree with Councilwoman Jangala, we should do something about this. Would we start a reaction to start prohibiting all advertisements that are against our morals and the social ethics, or what? Like Darrell says on the abortion issue.
Mayor and Councilmember Rodriguez, so that's why I think it's probably better to tailor it towards, some specific things. I'm trying to think of some other moral type issues. Maybe the alcohol content in beer is different than in Oregon it is in Idaho, just thinking of a hypothetical again. The broader you make that, the broader your potential challenges and the level of scrutiny. So I think it's probably better to not just be really broad, but focus on those particular items. That helps narrow any court challenge analysis, where you're arguing about a particular thing and the state's interest in that thing. being illegal. So, I mean, you're certainly opening the door to say we're going to prohibit advertising for illegal conduct, or what would be illegal in Idaho. And you know, that could say, well, maybe we pick through 2 or 3 other things later. But right now, I think I think I'd advise to focus on those things you want to focus on, and see how it goes.
Thank you,
Okay.
Todd. Councilman Haverfield.
Just a quick question, Todd. The explosive aerial fireworks, I mean, it's illegal in Idaho, but you can sell them in Idaho. Is this something we can tackle at the same time, the use of fireworks that are illegal fireworks over our city, to give our law enforcement even more teeth to go after people for doing that sort of thing, or is that out of the bounds of what we're talking about?
Mayor and Councilmember Haverfield, that one's a little tougher because it is legal in Idaho to sell those things. With you know, we all know the loopholes that kind of exist there, and so I think that's a tougher case than something that's absolutely straight illegal under state code. So if you want to go down that road, that has more risk and will require some more scrutiny because it is legal, and at least the purchase and sale of them with that copy.
I think it's a different topic. It's a very good question, and it's one that we need to continue to work with at the legislative level, that we shouldn't be selling something
Right, that you
in
can't-
our local community that isn't legal to use. But it's enough of a different topic but I think it's a good point. So on this one, I think we can go about this. Well, first of all, we don't take action today, but we can give Todd guidance to go ahead and be working on an ordinance that would then come back before the council. And so I guess the question I would have for beginning, would we like Todd to work on an ordinance that would come back before city council that would prohibit the advertising of an illegal substance, and we could keep it as narrow as these particular signs, which is the marijuana that is not legal? We could start there, and so I think I'd like to see a nod if that's the direction we're interested in going. Okay, so I think it is, and
Yeah.
so Todd, we'll have you start there. So that is a yes, and I so appreciate you bringing this forward. The second question that then has come up is, do we also include, like as Councilman Brunner mentioned, the abortion, if there were abortion advertising, which is not legal, do we also include that, or do we keep it narrow to the illegal substance?
Or if we can broaden it a little bit to include that, I'm all for it.
Okay, so I hear,
And I repeat, I know, that would just be billboards or whatever. I mean,
Correct.
I don't press, it's more than just Nampa, so we're not going to be able to
Correct.
stop their advertising in the paper, I'm sure, but.
just billboards.
I would love to, but yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
just billboards, or is there other type of advertising, Councilwoman, that?
Well, I was just going to say, there's some overlap in this code here with the statute, but also in that Title 37, Article 4, on subsection 2, it overlaps with what I already read. But then in addition to that, it just says, under the circumstances where one personally should know that the purpose of the advertisement in whole or in part of is to promote the sale of objects designed or intended to use as drug paraphernalia. Now, I've never been in a hot box, I can honestly say, but I'm assuming they probably sell paraphernalia in there, and so I think that gives us a little more teeth on this one.
Probably on that.
Okay. Well, yes.
I have a question on that, and you're absolutely correct. But I think, Joe, is there paraphernalia classified under another topic here or another word here in Napa? Like, is there another word for paraphernalia used for marijuana? You know what I'm trying to say? But it's used, but it's worded different in Napa. Is there another word for it?
Graffiti?
A bong?
You're not talking about graffiti.
Yes, well, not, I'm just thinking that,
What did you say?
Graffiti.
oh, that's not graffiti, it's, no.
So are you referring to our local stores that are actually selling the
Yes.
paraphernalia
In-
that you use for the illegal
Right.
drugs?
In Oregon is a roach clip.
Oh, I mean,
In
there's different
Idaho,
types of paraphernalia. but-
it's a paperclip. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, there's all different types of paraphernalias, but I mean, it's all falls under the state
Yeah,
code
I
for
know.
under
Yeah.
paraphernalia.
I know, and that goes to the point where Natalie's saying that it should include all equipment and all paraphernalia going with it.
But isn't it sold
in
Idaho?
That's what I'm asking, that's what I'm wondering.
How would you stop that?
I don't know.
It's kind of like are you talking like the hookah bars that have the, the pipes with, I mean, you can smoke marijuana out of that, but they're meant for tobacco.
Call them
I
bongs.
mean, we have hookah bars and stuff in Nampa that technically, I guess, if you went to the rule of law, they would fall under paraphernalia, but the prosecutor's office won't charge
Yeah.
for that because that's not what they were meant for. They are used for that type of purpose, but.
Okay.
Just my 2 cents on that, if you care. The
Yes.
372734A subsection 2, I think that's where that falls. And I think it's important to remember too that even though marijuana is legal in Oregon and the other states, it's still a federal violation to sell those. So that, you can lose your federal funding under that. Obviously, Idaho is, in my opinion, going under the right path by keeping it there. I think you also have to be careful if something's labeled like that, just under, a hot box. I mean, some folks may not know what that is. I think that current code that's in place, and I think that was adopted in 2021, meets what you're talking about. But I also think maybe it has to have a marijuana leaf on it or something. I mean, it just says hot box, Oregon's top hot box or whatever that is. Some people may not know what that is. So I think that's where you could get in maybe a little bit of trouble.
Okay, well, and that's what we'll have to ask Todd to really research and help us frame this ordinance. But, in some ways, it could be considered false advertising because you could be luring underage people into a location because they don't know what it is, right? I mean, I don't know, it's just interesting. Yeah, probably not. You're welcome to disagree with me.
Yeah.
And Mayor, I thought when I first looked at that signage, you bring back the signage again, the hot box? I mean, just their formulation I thought that said Oricon. So,
What is it?
the G, it looks like almost a C to me, Oricons.
I actually didn't know what it was until about a year ago.
I think that's part of the thing. I mean, I'd love to, if you guys want to do a policy on it, or,
Yeah.
I'm all about it. I just think we had to be very careful, but I think that 372734A subsection 2 probably fits.
Yeah, because in subsection 2, where it does say reasonably should know, knowing or under the circumstance that one reasonably should know that the purpose of the advertisement in whole or part of is to promote the sale of objects designed. So I think Chief Huff is on point with that.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilman Haverfield?
Joe, did you say that there are hookah bars in Nampa that marijuana is allowed to be smoked?
No. It's the hookah. No, it's the hookah pipes or whatever. They have.
That's what they're for? Okay.
Well, they're for tobacco, but people don't use them for tobacco. You put it in there, and there's like tubes that run off of them, is my understanding, and like you and I can each smoke off the same pipe, and so it's basically a bong.
I thought you said that that's happening and that our prosecuting attorney's office isn't prosecuting it.
Under the paraphernalia, because like I said, it's technically, is it a paraphernalia that you can use? It's kind of like Councilman Rodriguez was saying with the roach clip. I mean, I guess you could use it you can buy that roach clip like at a mail supply store. Well, it's for different things to hang on, but people use them to, get the last of their little marijuana joint. So technically, it's not paraphernalia, but it's used for paraphernalia.
That's a world I don't even want to understand, but
Right.
I'm following up on what I thought you said, but I'm glad that that's not the case. Otherwise,
Something we do watch for that's becoming somewhat of a problem is the vape, the electronic cigarettes, and there's THC, which obviously is in marijuana, is in schools and stuff like that. They go over to these hot boxes or whatever you call them in Oregon, and they can get a THC in there, so it smells like it's a vape, but it has THC in it, and so they bring that across the border, and then you are in possession of marijuana.
so is that, do you guys watch for that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, but it's a problem.
I think that just goes to the point that if we're advertising for things like that, kids know, adults know, whatever, that's where you can go to get that, bring it over, it's creating crime for us. A more something more that our police officers have to try to get under control. It just doesn't make sense to have it here.
I agree.
Thank you, Chief.
Good job,
So,
Natalie.
Councilwoman Jangula, thank you so much for bringing this forward. You know, this had been brought up before. It didn't move forward. Thank you for doing so again. And I think that we have consensus from the council to ask Todd to go ahead and move forward in creating an ordinance, and we'll make the ordinance, the language of the ordinance specific, but I think the nod was there for the other subject to also be included in that. So let's, as we move forward, I think what I'd like to ask is that we have a subcommittee, and Natalie, you would be on that subcommittee, and then possibly our council president that could be in communication with legal as we craft it, and then it comes back before the council.
Good.
Awesome.
Mayor, I just want to
Okay.
check. Todd,
Yes.
did your wife kick you out of the house, or?
He's living out of his car.
Living in a van down by the river.
I was just going to ask if he was in the parking lot.
Oh, that's good.
I think he's,
I've been down in Hello for a meeting with another client, so I thought it better to pull off the road. There's no road noise, and I can talk clearly. So I'm on my way back.
Todd, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it, even though it's from your car. So thank you.
Nice car.
Okay, so I think we are, unless there's any further comment or questions on this, we'll move on from this particular item. So let's move to 1.4 on the agenda, and this is the criteria for Public Works consent agenda items versus new business agenda items. So Tom Points and I have a discussion really every week about what goes on consent versus new business. And to our parks crew, thank you for being here today. Appreciate the work that you all do. Thank you to our golf crew too. So take care, guys. So decided to put it on this workshop agenda so we could have a conversation so that council really knew kind of the justification, but if we could identify criteria just to guide Tom, then it would save some of our discussions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good morning. So, yes, I asked Mayor and I had a discussion about this, and it came about actually the last council meeting. If you notice, we had 30 items on the agenda. And so, in this next one, we've got 15, but I don't really see less coming because we're just doing more and more every month, every year. So there's just, we need to have a discussion about what we want to do. We're not proposing to change how we do things in Idaho code or city code, or I know that legal's on as well. We had an email conversation about there's certain things that have to be a public hearing, and we're not talking about that at all. We're just talking about the items that come forward, what needs to be consent and what needs to be new business. Mayor and I talk about it, and it's like, well, that one seems like it's kind of a large dollar amount. Maybe it should be, but it's a pretty routine item, so maybe it doesn't need to be. And so we have this discussion, and we kind of guess what we think you all would want to do. And then sometimes it gets pulled and changed in a different way after you talk to President Haverfield, and that's a fine, but we just wanted to have this discussion with you to try to set some guidelines and have an open dialogue. That's all. That's the question. And so I'm just open it up to your comments and your thoughts.
So for example, on the consent agenda this time, traditionally, we have the lower cost, right, on the consent agenda, right? So it's usually 50,000, you know, if the mayor's signing the approval on something between 50 and maybe 100,000. If it was 400,000 to $1 million, we would put it on new business. You'll see in this coming council agenda that the chip that we're purchasing, authorizing to be purchased is about, I can't remember if that one's 360 something or 4 something, but it's a higher dollar amount. The reason it's on there is because it's an annual purchase. We do the same purchase every year, and in the packet, one of the things that we try to make sure, and Councilman Haverfield's really good at asking the question each time, do we have the, did it go to bid? Who bid on it and what were their bids, and that this is the low bid. And so that's why that was decided, because it was low bid. So that's right now what we're doing, is we're making sure that the good information is in there so that the bids are actually revealed to council. But sometimes you see that it's a real quick, we motion to approve and we move on, and we're thinking if we don't need discussion on it, and I try to pull things that I think we need discussion on into new business, but if we don't, the question is, what could we get on that consent agenda to help move our meetings along, instead of spending time one by one going through them and not needing any discussion? And so, to put it maybe a little bit more specific, what are you wanting to see versus, like, for example, if it goes on consent, is there anything additionally that you want in the packet? And what do you want that criteria to be for new business sitting on the agenda? Thoughts? Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
I'll just share a couple of things. Even from our meeting yesterday, where you provide information, like the consent to move forward with the bid process. That was just a statement, but there wasn't actual backup information that we saw that would be in the packet that would describe the project or potentially the criteria that would be used for the selection process. And there was one for the architects, there was one for maybe something else, I can't remember, but that was something that just, if that added information's there, then it's in our packet, it's on consent. It can always be pulled off a consent if, further deliberation needs to take place at this level. But as long as that information's provided in the packet, along with the value, proposed value for the projects, that's always important. One item that, just so you know that, and maybe the mayor's already shared it with you, that we pulled from consent was there were 2 bidders. Low bidder was not selected because they were non-conforming. So we were going with the second bidder. I thought that it would be important for the council to be able to review that and discuss whether they wanted to have it go back out to bid again to get more interest, or maybe to allow the one that was non-conforming a better chance to, clean up what they might have submitted. So those are the things I think that I look for when we talk each, as far as for our agenda review.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I have a question. So Tom, and Mayor, are there items being pulled that the council is not observing on the consent agenda or the regular agenda? Is that decision being made before it comes to council?
No.
On projects and bidding?
No, what we're doing, each meeting, Tom and I meet, and we go over all the agenda items. Some of them, I say, let's put on consent. Others, we put on new business. And then we have a meeting with the council president, legal, and we go over the council agenda. If there's a question that is on a consent item, we will maybe pull it to new business off of consent, so that it is clearly visible to council and there's opportunity to discuss it. And so that's already done before we step in, before we put the agenda together, because what we want to do, and this is the intent, everything's extremely transparent, anything that there might be a question on. But then there are a lot of times we fly through, right? And it appears that we probably didn't need it as new business with discussion. We probably could have put it on consent, and it would save some time. So for example, for me, my criteria is and what we've been doing, and like we did on the chip seal, purchase of the aggregate for the chip seal, that is a higher dollar amount. But because it's annually done, we have annual purchases that we do every year. It's the restocking of things for public works, right? The water department. You've got the aggregate, that's some pretty routine purchases. They happen every year, but they're higher dollar amounts. Is the council okay if, one, the bid came through very straightforward? We got the bids. Now, the one, Randy, you're speaking to, there's a question, right? And so what we do is we put that on new business so that we can address that question. But are you okay, even though it's a higher dollar amount, if it's our routine thing and all the bids are clearly evident in the backup documentation, are you okay with putting that on consent?
The only thing I have with that, Mayor, is that if there's any increase yearly of that particular purchase.
Okay, if it came in higher, now, one thing
Right.
that is pretty much a given, if it's within budget, anything that isn't within budget or that's a crossover, that needs to be on new business, so that we can ask questions and discuss
Yes,
it.
okay.
So anything that we've already approved in the budget, that fit within the budget, but I think what you're saying is, if there was a material increase, but then what would that material increase be?
Yeah, that's the thing. The
Yeah.
council will actually have to approve that purchase if it's beyond what we budgeted for.
But if it's in the budget, you're good with it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
If it's already in the budget?
Mayor.
Okay,
May-
yes.
Mayor,
For
go ahead.
Victor's sake, what I was telling Tom was exactly what you're asking. The only reason that we pulled it from consent and put it on new business was because I saw one bidder, and it wasn't the low bidder. So that's why we pulled it out, so that we could talk about it.
Yeah.
But all that information is provided in the packets, or needs to be. Even if it's on consent, you need to look at your consent items to make sure that you're seeing what's there, because you can always pull that and put it on new business the night of the hearing. So, again, full transparency, and the intent is to make sure that we're getting a broader exposure of bidders on projects if we can, and then when we can't, find out why, and if we want to rebid it. We've rebid projects already that came in over budget, and even by staff's recommendation, we've rebid things. But I think that's inherent on us as the keepers of the coin, in a sense, to make sure we get the best out of the money that we have available.
Mayor, I'm fine with the four of you pretty much making some decisions here. I'm fine here. So the criteria, just clarification, criteria has somewhat been monetary and have used, if it's, you said if there may be discussion, but also dollar amounts. So are you using the 50,000? Have you been using the 100,000? What have you, or has there been any
In the
general?
past, there wasn't a fixed dollar amount, but if it was, if it was a couple 100,000, it was put on the new council.
Was 100,000? Was
business.
100,000?
Yeah, but now I've got a consent item that's several hundred
Yeah.
thousand.
So my point is if there's to me, if it's in budget, but if it's over, if it's 100,000 or more, at least can the clerk at least we'll put a little asterisk, just to draw it to our attention in the consent agenda, that we maybe need to look at that one, that's a higher, not that we pull it, but we just, I know if we're doing our due diligence, we're gonna look at all those, but I'm just saying, so, a council person, hey, here's a little asterisk or whatever, higher amount, but it's in the budget, and
And I don't think council, that Shar doesn't need to do it, because and Tom, this is something that we always make sure we do anyway, and that is the actual dollar amount is in the action item.
Right.
So when you look at your agenda, it clearly says how much that dollar amount is.
Okay.
And so all you have to do as a council member is literally read the packet, because it'll say action item. It's to authorize the mayor and the public works director to sign, to authorize the bid to go to for this. I think one thing that Tom, that we kind of talked about is using the word annual. For those annual renewals, ensuring it's clear that it's an annual renewal, but the dollar amount is there. So it's clearly evident what that dollar amount is.
it's just in consent agenda, there's so many miscellaneous type things, so I'm just, I guess, if there's
So it would be under authorization of contracts?
right.
So on the consent agenda, one of the things that we do, we've got the authorized to go to bid. Okay, and so just so everybody knows on that one, the authorized to go to bid, that's going to come back before us. That's why it's on consent. We're just saying, yes, you can put this out to bid. But it is a heads up to council. Things are going out to bid. It'll come back to us for authorization before the contract's approved. And then the next section on the agenda actually is, it talks about the contracts. It's the authorization, I'm trying to think the exact, it's contracts and agreements is the way it's worded. And so all of those would be under that one section. So, and then they just have the dollar amount. But one thing that we try to make sure that we do is that the dollar amount is in the action item. The action item also states if it was approved in the FY24 budget and if it was reviewed by legal. So those three items are always there. Yes, Doug?
But what we're hoping to do is provide just a little more clarity on the language on the budgetary approval, which you mentioned it, But sometimes we'll see, because projects shift, and maybe a project that was budgeted at $2.3 million comes in at $2.6 million. When we approve that in the budget, we're adding a project number to each of the items in the budget. And then when it comes for approval, they'll say project number, well, this is the proposal anyway to work with, the project number XY is approved in the FY24 budget at $2.3 million. The request is at $2.8 million. Something along those lines which lets you know what the budget amount was and what the request is for, so that we can verify how we're using the funds. Do we need to, do they have funds that aren't being used that can go back into the pot, or do they need to pull funds from another place? And in your notes in the packet agenda, my hope is that what we could do is get clarity on how that money is being used. Maybe not in the agenda item, but in your packet notes, there's an additional $300,000 needed for this project. We'll pull that from Project XYZ, whatever the case might be. Just
So,
provide that.
and Doug, thank you so much for clarifying. So I just want to be really clear for council. So that particular scenario would not be on the consent agenda?
No, that's correct.
It goes into new business so that it can be discussed. What Doug is proposing will not be in the action item on the agenda, but it will be in the packet. Most of the time, this is coming through Public Works. For the other departments that don't do all this all the time, we have to work and train them up on it. Public Works does a phenomenal job, as you guys know, in putting their sheets together. I like what Doug is suggesting, is that in their packet information, he's wanting the clarity of if it's over budget, and maybe it's 200,000, but well, actually, it's already reflected if it's under budget, because it's always in their write-up. But if it's over budget, then we're pulling money, maybe it's more from the highway fund, let's say. They've got the funding to cover it, and it's budgeted, but it's over what they projected. So we'll just be really clear that that's a call out and what that funding source is. And that is something that Doug will work with Tom on. And that'll be more of an internal operational side that will be in the packet. You won't see that in the action item. It'll be in the packet. Otherwise, our action items are going to be too long. But if the FY, one thing that we've clarified also, if it was approved in the FY23 budget and we're in FY24, we don't say, I mean, that's in a budget amendment that's coming.
Right.
And so that also needs to be called out in the packet, and that's something.
Say, this is a carry forward from FY23, so you know where the funding is coming from, because I'll
Yep.
eventually have to bring that forward as an amendment.
As an amendment, yeah.
Mayor, just because we're talking about maybe, shortening council meetings or whatever, and this is not on the agenda, so it's another time to discuss. But I've still always wondered, even though we've much improved, but why in our packet, and I realize any citizen that's really that interested can see it also, but why P&Z, we're still rereading a lot of things or reiterating a lot of things in the packet. By our staff. I'm not quite...
During our public hearing.
During our public hearings. I'm still not understanding the necessity of that, if we're doing our due diligence again, so...
That's the key. Have we all
And I
read our
realize,
packets?
and I'm not
Yeah.
naive, they're wonderful, but there's some that seem to go into more detail than others.
Okay, so before we move on, let Rodney respond to that, if you don't mind, because Rodney's online.
I was just going to share what was shared with us yesterday by our new CFO.
Oh.
About it being a public hearing or a meeting for the public. There's a difference, and did I say that right? I think so, it's close.
Go
Anyway.
ahead and say it, and he can repeat it. So it's
not a public meeting, it's a meeting held in public.
So.
I'm sorry,
let's repeat that again. Let's repeat that.
It's not a public meeting, it's a meeting held in public.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Since people online couldn't hear it, so go ahead.
Okay, it's not a public hearing.
It's a public meeting.
It's a public meeting, no.
It's not a public meeting,
not
it's
a
a
public
meeting
meeting.
held in public.
Right, just what you said.
Yeah, sorry.
That's why that information is provided again from people that haven't had a chance to really look at a packet of information. So that's why it's provided by staff, but it's usually a limited presentation. That's what you're talking about? Yeah. Even though we have the information the public might not have it, and it's
So
a
the
public.
public could have it. If if it's in the packet, they can look at the packet.
Sure.
And if they don't have computers, they wouldn't be able to do either one of them, and they're not going to be able to live stream and watch it either. So we're not helping those who are not, are technology
But
challenged
we're
like I am.
helping people that may be in the room, that are here, that are testifying, right? Because they maybe don't have the technology, so they've actually come in person, so that they are aware of what we're doing.
And overall, we've improved greatly as
Yeah.
far as cutting the time and so on. I just saying if we're getting into the nitty gritty on cutting time, there may be
Yeah,
some other
thank you.
possibilities.
And Rodney, any comments from you?
No, I think Councilman Haverfield and Mayor, you both addressed the exact same things I was going to say. Yeah, it's a public hearing meant for the public to participate in that process. So they need to have that information. And yes, many of them show up to the hearing because they read it in the physical newspaper and not got online. They show up to the meeting and need to have some of that information. We do our best. I mean, you put it on the screen, there's a lot of details, and sometimes we'll just put the entire formal findings on the screen, or all the conditions, or all the communication from another agency, and we just put it on the screen briefly, so at least it's there, it's available for the public to look at, but we try to get through it pretty quickly, and as Councilman Bruner said, we're trying to get through that pretty quickly, and we understand that you read. I think we are just concerned about citizens having that ability to see all the information.
Thank you, Rodney. Okay, so Tom,
Mayor,
I don't,
have one more. We covered the dollar amount and a lot of the questions, but one of the things that's also very routine with our grants is MOUs for projects, like from LTAC and ITD, and so we're in an agreement that we're going to do a design or a construction administration. Is that a consent or new business? And I'd like to
Thank you.
get a little feedback on that.
that and grants. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the MOU first. Do you want the MOUs on new business, or do you want them, can they be on consent?
I think it could be on
It
consent,
can be consent,
yeah.
as long as everything's in there.
And then, and we've already said this a couple times, you can always pull items the night of to say, hey, I want to move this to new business for discussion. Okay, and so what about, go ahead.
Really quickly, I think, as far as when it comes to us, I feel like the consent agenda is pretty well oiled. I feel like there's not a lot of times that I'm voting no on consent agenda items. I feel like it's pretty transparent. I'm just a numbers person. If I want to see all the numbers, the transparency there. So if there's like a CPI, I want the PPI too. I know they're not a one-for-one, but I like seeing those numbers so that I can really weigh in on that. But my question, I guess, is that if there is a consent agenda item on there that I would want to vote no on, would you recommend I just vote no on it there, or do you think that we should pull it?
You pull it.
And then we can have discussion? Okay.
Yep, we'll just pull it, and then we can have discussion, and then your vote, right, you get to pull that one out. Yeah, and I'm happy for you to pull it. I think we all are, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so what about grants? Because we have had quite a few grants come through, and it's just the authorization for a department. We've got a lot of family justice grants, and we've got the other grants, yes.
And my involvement with that, when it comes up as a topic to either leave or not, is if there's a match. We just need to know that. If there's a match, then you almost need to pull it so that the council has a chance to review, because it's a part of what we're authorizing their budget to be either increased by, or if it's covered in the budget.
But if it's, question, and then if you could help me, we'll need to communicate this to FJC too. So if it's budgeted though, the match is clearly called out in the materials, and it's in the budget, and the match is, not that significant, but or even if it is, it could be a $200,000 match, but it's already in the budget, already approved, and it's called out in the packet.
If that definition is provided, yes.
Okay, as long as that's all in the packet. If it's authorization to go after a grant, if everything's in there.
Right.
Okay.
It's still at the discretion of the council if one of us wants to pull it and put it
Absolutely.
back as a discussion item.
Yeah, that's what I like about that, is that and don't be afraid to do it, right? If there's a question, don't be afraid to do it, but we'll try to catch it even ahead of time if there is. Okay, are we good with that? Tom, do you have the clarity?
Yep, thank you so much. Good
Thank you.
discussion. Thank you.
It is good, thank you. So we have one other item to talk about today, and those are the council workshop days and times. So currently, and Sebastian, thank you for being here today. Appreciate it, thank you. So currently, we are meeting the third Thursday of every month from 7 to 9. Does this time work for us? Because we want a calendar. And I'm seeing Sebastian shake, because really the question goes to you. You're shaking your head yes. So this time works for you. Thank you so much. Council, does this continue to work for us?
I'm okay with it.
To continue on with the same timing? Okay. So then this way we can go ahead and get all of our workshops for the next year. You did send them out already. So they're done. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So we're good. There's no changes. And then we're also, I have another question, and that is that, and this is about council meetings, but this last council meeting, we moved our executive session up to 4:45, or we could make it at 5, rather than putting it at the end of the meeting. Did you like that, or would you prefer, we do have an executive session. If we do that, it requires us to call a special meeting. We have to notice it as a special meeting. As you saw, we come in, we convene the meeting, and we adjourn into executive session, and then come out of that meeting and start. Are you okay if we, how did that work for you, or shall we just keep the executive session at the end of the meeting, if it's not a long meeting?
Man, I'm okay with it, 4:45.
I think it's good because it sets a time frame that we need to be done by. Whereas the executive sessions we've had in the past that go beyond midnight, after 11 o'clock, we're not going to make critical thoughts, be able to do that.
You know, the good news is that our meetings, and we're kidding Peter, that he's, since he's been here, our meetings have been short. And so it's been amazing with, we're just kidding, it's just, yeah. But it has been fortunate that our early years, we were here till midnight and 1, almost every meeting. And we're not anymore, and I like that. But I guess, Natalie, you have a job.
Yeah, it's harder for me to get here earlier, but I mean, if it's every once in a while, then that's fine.
Okay. This upcoming meeting for Monday night, it actually isn't a long meeting. I think we have 4 public hearings, but 3 of the, they're not, I don't think it's going to be a long meeting at all. And we didn't go ahead and notice it as a special meeting. So maybe we'll leave the executive session at the end for this meeting since it's already published. But in the future, we can do on not a regular basis. Okay.
Especially when it's union negotiations, that just is so dull in a sense, late at night, to try to understand those numbers and how they relate.
It's better to do it early.
Yeah.
Okay. Fortunately, we don't have that for 2 years. I'm glad.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so I think that concludes our meeting today, and we are done 4 minutes early, or 3. And so I would stand for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. I'll be on Zoom on Monday.